Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Old Moon Podcast, episode 11. Wow, 11 weeks straight through, and not a single one of us bailed on it. How crazy is that?
Wild.
Actually insane. All right, I am Blue Squadron, your host, as per usual here, and I am joined with my co-hosts, as always, Tiltus TV and Jakun VT, who will introduce themselves in a moment. You'll notice the brand new addition to the podcast. We have featured art now every week. Thank you, Jakun, for that suggestion. That was fantastic. You're
welcome.
Jay, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Oh, no. Hi, I am Jakun, and I am a Woosa main with 750 gear score, and I love to party. Yes, welcome to the Old Moon Podcast, episode 11. Let's go, sheesh.
Flex. Yeah, exactly.
Laid on the bam.
On the table.
Did you guys feel that? The ground shuddered a little bit. All right. And Tiltus?
Hello, I'm Tiltus TV, part-time streamer, full-time shot caller for the Solace Alliance, and a gearlet, unlike Jay.
Define gearlet.
Jay brags about it. I'm like 650. I'm like 650. I'm actually a gearlet.
Yeah, never mind. You literally started yesterday.
See, Jay brags about it. See, that's the thing. It's the people that joke about it. That's how you know the good players are.
Oh yeah.
No, what the?
All right. Okay. So we have a lot of interesting topics here for today. A lot of Tiltus topics, a lot of Jakun topics, and certainly a lot to discuss with Woosa Awakening coming out tomorrow. Actually,
yeah, wild.
But the first thing I want to talk about today is the top content. Now, we talk all the time on this podcast about changes we want to see to the game, current content, things like that. But I want to know what you guys actually felt in your time playing BDO. What's your top all-time favorite content that they have ever released? We'll start with Tiltus.
So my favorite change that they ever made is probably Manos, to be completely honest. Because I don't know if Jay, I'm sure you remember, or Jay Blue, I'm sure you remember, but life skilling before Manos came out sucked.
Oh, yeah,
it was not fun.
It blew, bro.
It was so terrible. It was just.
I can't wait to go to Pilgrims again.
Yeah, let me go to Pilgrims with my magical shining pickaxe or my shining pickaxe.
You still go there, right?
Oh yeah, I still go there. Yeah, but yeah, honestly it made life skilling so much better for me as a casual life skill player that it may actually be some of my favorite content that they added to the game that's not just a grind spot, because I think my favorite content besides that would probably be Mirror Mock, because it was the first time I really got invested grinding with guildies, and when it first came out it was everybody was there all the time, or when it first got reworked, let me rephrase that, to be a group grind spot, it was everybody was there all the time. It was hop in hop out all the time. It was a ton of fun. So those are probably my two biggest content related things to the game as far as great changes that they made.
Yeah, I mean, what was the last of the grinds? You liked the Valencia edition of grinding, or what?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed Valencia a ton when it first came out. I was a religious Valencia grinder. I was a perma red Fogans player. I had the little axe trick to get out of jail in 30 seconds. Had a house of Moy Quinn at one point. I loved OG Valencia. I spent so much time there. But that was back when gear creep was not there yet. Everybody was still struggling to get their tri-boss weapons and stuff like that. So
Grunil, baby,
Grunil, yeah, full tri Grunil with my Zarka, dude.
That's right, baby. All right, Jay, what's your favorite content that's ever been released?
For me, it's definitely continuous care skill for Fairy. This was a massive life change for me. Specifically. Okay, I do a lot of party content in BDO, okay? And not having to remember to pop my elixirs for my party every 15 minutes was a godsend. Even when I'm solo grinding, right? Remembering to pop your draft and perfume is hard enough. And to make it harder, the buffs don't even line up, right? Drafts are 15 minutes, perfumes are 20.
I got a question.
No.
How is yours not dungeons?
No, I don't accept. Yeah, I don't accept that. I don't
Dungeons
accept that
on the
answer.
list.
I'm so
Dungeons
sorry.
is on the list. I just.
I'm so sorry. I don't accept that answer. You're gonna have to pick something different.
The fairy skill.
That's
The
literally
fairy
too
skill.
bad.
Not the fairy by itself. This particular
Literally.
skill.
Literally. Just, he loved popping his potions, hitting 1 and 2 repeatedly
Dude,
all the time.
I still have that problem. When I get knocked down, I have a mouse on 1 button on the side of my mouse, and when I get knocked down, I still mash the 1 button sometimes from like OG pot popping.
Oh my god. Okay, so I'll do you guys one better. First, let me debunk Jay real quick. We're gonna move back because that's a quality of life buff, and I just immediately I'm like, all right, well, what quality of life buffs do I see as the best in BDO? And I gotta say, Jay, did you play the game before the current central marketplace was a thing?
I did. It started in 2018. Mm-hmm.
So let me get this straight. You liked going to the marketplace for 8 straight hours and just bidding on every single relic crystal shard. You like that right there. You the central market, nah, don't even worry about it. I liked the relic crystal shard grind. Yeah. I didn't really think about the amount of hours you spent just staring at the marketplace back then. Kids these days, I tell you, they don't know. They don't know. Most people nowadays are like, oh my god, the Magnus is such a quality of life improvement. I'm like, back in my day, every outfit, I had to go bid on every outfit. Like back in the day, you used to get, I was like Pavlov's dog. Remember, you used to get ding. Like you had all these notifications on the marketplace, and every time something got listed to the marketplace that you wanted to actually buy, you had to go bid on it. And then it was random who got the item. That includes Pearl Shop items. So you had notifications for every single outfit on every single class. Every single time one got notified to the marketplace, ding, ding.
God,
and you
I
had
do not miss that.
Oh my gosh. And you had your marketplace made up all the time. You're like, bid, okay. And you like try to keep grinding. But don't worry, Jay. I'm sure that the continuous care definitely saved you all of 8 seconds. My favorite content, 2 things by far that stand out in BDO. And they're very tied to each other. The first is Awakening release, which again, just barely, I think, beats continuous care. I think literally the release of Awakening on every class in the game, barely edges out Jay's continuous care. And then Succession. Those are the 2 times
you're that
in the
big
game.
Of a fan of Succession.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan. I love letting people play classes like their own way. So like they should pick something. They should pick a class based on its thematic, right? Like, did they fall in love with this aspect or like this theme of the class? And then they want it but not everyone wants to play Ranger the same way. Not everyone wants to play Dark Knight. A lot of people fell in love with Dark Knight because it has a big ass sword and an excellent personality. But other people fell in love with it because it had floating swords and an excellent personality. So like, I just liked that you could take the same class and play it 2 or 3 different ways. But again, continuous care was also a good release.
I know.
I can't believe his wasn't dungeons.
I can't believe the low-hanging fruit.
The low-hanging fruit. Yeah, exactly. It was there.
Oh my god, you gotta be kidding me right now. All right, okay, so we're gonna go around again. Give me your next favorite thing that you have not already listed. Tiltus, we'll start with you. Jay, I want you to think really hard this time about your next answer. Tiltus, start with you.
My next favorite thing, are we going for content or quality of life changes?
No, just both together. Whatever you think both together.
One of the biggest changes that I was so happy when it hit the game was workers not having to build node ward forts anymore. Holy crap. Do you remember, Blue?
Were you there?
Oh God.
Yeah,
There's like 20 people in the guild all send their worker out to go build the fort, because if you didn't, you didn't get the war that day.
Oh gosh. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, you had to assign workers to build each individual annex of your fort when it started, and like it took hours. And you had to have like 1 million workers get this done every day. It made managing node war guilds close to impossible. It was so difficult.
That's why officer used to be such a big thing back in the day. It's not nearly as big a thing now, but
Right.
Back then, it was like only officers could send their workers out to go do shit. So,
Right on. All right. I'm almost scared. Jay?
Okay. I think this is a better one. Okay, so another thing that saved me so much time was the introduction of the Nadir's band for enhancing.
Ooh,
that
that's a
allows
good one.
players to store and swap their stacks without having an alt to do so. For newer players, if you didn't know, enhancers in the past had to use alts to essentially store their stacks. This
Yep.
meant loading screens every time you wanted to go for your try or TED or pen attempt. So, and I'm sure you guys know BDO and loading screens don't really get along, and it crashes a lot. So
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
that's,
really, really glad they added this function. So
that's definitely a better one.
I'll take that one over
as good as continuous care. To be honest.
I need an adult. Yeah, no, that's a good one. I also liked this isn't used anymore, but back then it was kind of a super big deal. In order to actually build fail stacks, you had to use reblath. And downgrading your reblath was like a thing that you had to do.
Oh,
so you had to have a red karma ult. You have to swap over, equip your gear, let the townsfolk beat you to death. Any number of times. It downgrades. You switch back to your main character. Oh my gosh, it was miserable. Then they allowed you to downgrade the reblath at the NPC, and then we all thought to ourselves, "What if we just wore pen reblath?" And the problem went away. Now all the biggest enhancers literally just they click reblath all the way up to pen. Man, they go straight for it. So it's not used as much anymore. But that's just what Jay reminded me of. I'd say my next biggest thing is, again, the Central Market, bro. So it's like Awakening, Succession, Central Market were the three biggest things. But I've already mentioned that, so that's kind of a cop-out. I'm going to go with the ocean content, the Carracks.
There it is. I knew that was going to be yours. I was waiting for it.
It's better than Jay's continuous care, okay? I've got Carracks, all right, and bartering and like croc content and like getting bigger boats and stuff like this. Like being able to like really just spend all of your time in video on the high seas. I love that. I didn't use it right away, but I've really kind of grown into it. It's been a lot of fun. Okay, one more time. We'll go around the horn. What's your guys' favorite thing? We'll go to Jay first, since we hit Tiltus first last time.
Well, I was going to say the dungeons, but more than a dungeons actually is Olin's Valley. I think this was the first time they've ever introduced a spot like it's a unique spot unlike any other. Instead of grinding massive amounts of monster, you are hitting this big giant mob that summons a few minions, and had this really interesting mechanic where it would drop its arm and you would break it to get extra loot. I thought that was such a satisfying reward mechanic for the grind spot, and I hope more grind spots like it come in the future.
Yeah, I mean, you like that more than the dungeon? I find that
actually,
that's why. It's because he actually got the merchant ring.
Because you can spam it.
True.
That's what it.
True.
That's what it is.
You're right.
Yeah. But that's a solid answer, though. I like that. And like one grind zone that really stands out among all the other grind zones. I agree with that. Tiltus?
Man, is it a cop out if I just say Magnus?
No, that was the low hanging fruit, bro. That's like probably the best.
That
was
probably not as good as continuous care. So
that was probably the best and biggest surprise when I came back from my big break, is Magnus had just released, and it was like, whoa, you mean to tell me I'm a little bit of an immersion freak, so I still ride my horse everywhere. I refuse to use the wells because I'm a weirdo like that. But the storage, the storage. I can just access anything from anywhere all the time. Oh, God, it's so nice.
It's actually the truest thing ever, dude. I remember when I got it, I didn't even realize what it did. I thought you could only use it with maids, and then I went to the storage keeper, and it was like Aladdin started singing in the background. I was like, oh my God, I have so much more room for activities. Like suddenly all of the game just kind of opened up. And for the longest time, man, they just did not want to let us use storage across like the whole world or whatever. That's absolutely massive.
The storage changes in general have been huge. I mean, even the Central Market, adding the warehouse, reducing the weight of certain items in the warehouse, like just everything that they've done with storage lately has been a hit, has been successful. I think.
Now you can use your maids to grab stuff off your alts. Now you don't have to go through loading screens.
Yes, no more load screens.
Stop it! I can't. My table's tipping. I can only get so hard. It's just that good. Yeah, no, I absolutely love that content. Honestly, the stuff that I'm gonna say it's probably a little less thought so, but I'm a big fan of the Mountain of Eternal Winter expansion.
That was gonna be my next one.
I love
it was a
Mountain of
toss up.
Eat it. I loved Mountain of Eternal Winter. It's just because it's the thematic of the snow and like I don't know the music soundtrack. Most players don't get into the soundtrack to the game very often, but like man, the music soundtrack for Mountain of Eternal Winter just slaps. Absolutely slaps. I love the Nordic theme. I love everything about it.
Don't forget Lando.
True, we did get Lando in the Mountain of Eternal Winter as well. That's big. That's big. Okay, all right. So now we're gonna pivot off that a little bit. Why play BDO over other MMOs? Like, so they're all the same genre, and don't just give me the same. Oh well, it's a sandbox MMO. Why do you particularly prefer BDO over Final Fantasy, Elder Scrolls, Lost Ark, all the other big name MMOs? Jay, why don't you go first?
Well, I think it's definitely the combat for me. I think most people can agree that BDO's combat system is one of the best, if not the best, currently on the list of MMOs. There's so many classes to choose your combat style, and not to mention the visuals of the combat as well. I mean, if you checked out Woosa Awakening, her skills are absolutely gorgeous. They always seem to make really interesting classes with interesting mechanics, and I think anyone who loves to deep dive into class combos will definitely love Black Desert.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's usually either combat or graphics, man. That's usually what everybody says. Tiltus, what do you think?
Yeah, so remember when I said I'm an immersion freak?
Yeah.
My first month of playing this game, I was a completely solo player, and it was I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's the most fun I've ever had playing a game ever. The world was massive. It was all this stuff to do. I had no idea what was going on. I was a brand new player. And I just loved it. I loved leveling my Dark Knight to 56. I loved grinding mains and homes post for hours on end, trying to level up to 60, like doing all that stuff. And I didn't join a guild until I was level 58 or 59. And then I kind of jumped into the community side of things. So I have spent the entire last 5 years chasing that 1 month high of trying to find why I loved the game so much for that first month, because it was why the first month you play BDO is incredible. There's so much to do. It's wild. And then you stay for the community afterwards. But I think for me, it was that immersion of just like, there's no fast travel. I had to go everywhere. I had to explore everything myself. I had no idea what was happening because the game has so many systems that it doesn't explain to you off the rip. So I felt like an actual adventure just thrown into the world, and it was like, all right, figure it out. Good luck. I hope you make it to the other side.
Bro, and again, we're literally stuck with this. Like, somehow we've come around to the best analogy for BDO is heroin. It's literally,
It is.
You're always constantly fighting to get back to that first high. Yep. Actually unreal. So yeah, no, I think that obviously the standout are the combat and the graphics. And then the thing that I like to go to is I can do whatever I want in BDO. And for someone with I have a really overactive and wild imagination, which gets me into trouble sometimes, but does me good in other areas of my life. But like I feel like I'm only limited in BDO by what I'm able to imagine, and I like constantly trying to discover new things. And when I'm done with one thing or I'm burnt out on one thing, I can always just pivot and do another thing. But I look over at you guys heard of this new MMO coming out, the Throne and Liberty or whatever?
Oh, dude, don't.
They've been working on this. They've been working on this thing for like 15 years, and I'm not joking. I took one look at it.
my chat was actually describing it as like a mobile game or something.
Yeah, like
it is RuneScape with worse combat. If you can imagine old school RuneScape with worse combat.
So good. Absolute dumpster fire. God, it's my favorite. Because mainly because people always say it's the BDO killer. This is gonna be the one. This is the one. And it's always, I take one look at it, I'm like, those graphics are nowhere near. I can see the pores on my character's skin. There is not a chance that those graphics are coming anywhere near. And then I look at the combat, and I'm like, oh, I get to hit the number 2. Oh, now I got to hit the number 3. Oh, back to number 1 again. Now over to number 2. Like, nobody wants to do that, man. Like,
and if that's not enough for you, Throne and Liberty has an autoplay feature. So
That's right.
Just crank it up and let it go.
That's right.
Cool.
It's miserable. But yeah, no, I only just wanted to briefly mention it because I just saw it and it was kind of laughably bad. But like, do you guys feel like there's going to be another MMO that, like, is there an MMO that you're kind of holding out hope for here?
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of the Ashes of Creation
Oh,
hype
wow.
train. I'm on it. I'm on the
Okay.
Copium train. And then the Ride MMO, obviously.
Oh yeah, we're all in that
So-
waiting room, big dog.
Yeah.
we're,
Yeah.
we're all in
So-
that waiting room.
Those outside of those two, nothing's gonna come out that grabs my interest. New World didn't get my interest. Lost Ark had my interest for like 48 hours. The only other one I'd consider playing is maybe going back and dabbling in Final Fantasy again, or playing OSRS for the 30,000th time in my life. So, that's it.
Jay, anything that ruffles your feather a little bit?
Not really. I had a question. Are there any other MMOs that do the same like key input stuff that BDO does, like Shift E, Shift F, and all that stuff?
No,
Because
no. There's never been
is
an
that
MMO
like-
released like that.
yeah, I'm just like wondering why. Is it copyrighted? Like, can
No,
other MMOs
it's-
cannot do that or something, or they
No,
just
it's an
don't want to
engine.
do it?
It's an engine
Oh,
problem.
it's
So
an engine thing. Oh, I see.
BDO built its own engine.
Yep.
And so
okay.
they can do very unique things with that engine, and also that means their graphics can be much better. Everyone else is stuck on Unreal Engine 1.7. Like and Unreal Engine's a great engine. It can do a lot of things, but I think that the BDO, because of how it functions, I don't think that they're able to actually replicate BDO's action combat system. So until an MMO actually comes out with a new engine, which costs, you have to understand, making an engine is different than making a game. If you have to develop an engine on top of a game, you're talking about millions and millions of dollars potentially.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you have to develop basically, like, think of the physics for the world, and you have to develop that for the world that goes into the engine. You have to develop all the keystrokes that all goes into it.
Right.
There's a player limit, server limit, all that stuff's built into the engine. So like Unreal Engine 5, I think has like a 500 player limit per server or something like that, like in the base Unreal Engine. So it gets weird when you start pushing the limits on like pre-built engines. Didn't BDO sell its engine at one point to somebody?
I don't think so.
I'm
never
pretty sure
heard
they sold the
anything about that.
licensing to somebody, but I can't remember who it was for the life of me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is the reason it's so successful is because the engine is just cleaning away
Yep.
better at making an MMO.
It's also the big reason World of Warcraft remains the exact same, because they built the engine in 2000 and
Yes,
they
sir.
haven't been able to update it. So,
Yep. Short of updating the engine altogether. And like, again, when you're developing a game, so you have all these other games and there's these MMOs that want to come out and try to compete with BDO, but they just miss the mark because they're all using an engine that is just strictly, if you're trying to make a good combat system, it's just not as good as BDO's is. That's just the bottom line. So I think we're all I am personally in the Riot Games waiting room for that MMO, because I think that I'm not, I don't know. I've seen a lot of, what was the Ashes of Creation? I've seen a lot of different teasers and stuff. I don't think that is really going to be all that great. I might try it when it comes out, but I think that I would play BDO over that just at first looks. I think that the Riot MMO, the biggest thing that I'm concerned about potentially for that MMO is that it's going to be a theme park MMO. And I'm not going to have the diversity of stuff that I actually want to do. And so, again, we go back to BDO again. So we're just waiting. Then we just turn around and we're in the... Please, Jay, come out with another MMO. Like, we're all waiting for Crimson Desert. Although Crimson Desert, I think, is... all right, I'll just say it. I think it's going to be a co-op RPG that just takes the MMO aspect of BDO away. Uses a similar engine, allows you to play with all your friends, similar grind mechanics, similar grind stuff, but like MMORPG. I mean, not an MMORPG, just a co-op RPG.
that's what I think it's going to be too.
Right on. Okay, all right, so we're gonna move on to one of Jay's topics here. Jay, you suggested, how transparent should the developers actually be with their content? There are pros and cons to being transparent with your content. And some people are very critical of them for not being transparent enough, or at least they've been very critical in past years, but maybe more recently, not so much. So Jay, how do you feel about this? What are the pros and cons of maybe being fully transparent with your content?
Well, I mean, I think at least for me, I love speculating and theory crafting. That's always been my favorite part about gaming company streams and game trailers. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever played Path of Exile, and that game kind of goes hard on the complexity of their gearing stat system. And, you know, it attracts those kinds of players who love theory crafting. So I am kind of leaning more towards players themselves figuring out the certain systems to optimize their gameplay and their character.
Okay, so you want more transparency than what we're currently getting.
I think so. I think so.
I did. He's like, I don't
so.
know now. I don't.
You know. Yeah, I don't know what I want.
And therein lies the problem. And therein lies the problem, right?
You know,
the players never know what they want, Jay.
I know.
They think they know, but
actually,
they don't.
I do know what I want. I want more continuous care in my life. So.
Oh God.
I can't believe it, dude. 7 years he plays this game, and continuous care is literally it's like this like one little patch. It wasn't even talked about at the Calpheon Ball. That's how small it was. It was just like this little thing. Like, all right, Tiltus, what do you think about developer transparency? You want more or less?
For BDO, I want more transparency. I do like when there are hidden things in the game, but I think I like when there's hidden things in the game when it's not a competitive based game. So like BDO for me is a very competitive PvP heavy game. So I want everything to be transparent so that I can min-max the way I want, so that I can, you know, figure out whatever system it is that I'm going to use and pursue that system entirely. So more transparency would be nice. I think we have a lot more than we used to, and we're at like 90% of the way there. I would like to see us like just flip it on to follow League of Legends. Just here are the straight numbers, bro. Go for it. Like, here you go. There's still like the percentages against other classes that exist, like percentage damage versus other classes that still exist. It's like not in the official game. It was data mined and like stuff like that. That kind of stuff bothers me because I'm like, I want to be able to crunch my numbers and know if I hit this button, and this button against this class, I will kill this class regardless of what gear it has. That kind of stuff, because I'm a number-oriented person. But that being said, Crimson Desert, if it's a co-op RPG, make it mysterious. I don't want to know anything about it, because I like figuring things out. And, you know, this is the best build for me. Oh, wait, just kidding. It's not. That was what was so cool about playing Elden Ring at release, is like everybody finding out what the like meta was going to be for you know, beating the game quickly and all that kind of stuff. And I suffered. I played through as a faith strength build for the first 2 weeks of Elden Ring, and I wanted to die. It was horrible. So I like stuff. I like hidden stuff, but only when it's not directly competitive. If it's competitive, I need it to be 100% transparent.
I think honestly, I like where their transparency is right now. I think that they went from no transparency at all, like completely clouded. So yeah, I was on the fence of like, okay, we need a little bit of transparency, to now we're at a point where I'm like, okay, stop. And I gotta admit, like, as someone that's led a community for a long time and like a guild for a long time, people don't know what the fuck they want, bro. They have no idea. If you let them know everything, there would be a panic in the streets. There would literally be a riot in the streets if you let them know everything. You can't possibly be transparent with everything. There's like things that they need to know, and then there's things that they say they want to know, but they don't really want to know. And then they're like, you know, like for example, let's say they come out tomorrow and they say, we have absolutely no fix for desync. It is never going to get fixed. There would be riots in the street, bro. Like it would be absolutely wild. Bro, so this enigma, this we're just not gonna talk about it, and then like they, like people, then they'll just live on the copium of that, like it's gonna get fixed kind of deals. Like I can tell usually when they're doing it to me now. I can tell because they'll
got
just
the sixth sense for it.
They'll just go quiet on something. I'm like, they can't fucking fix that. Like pet damage. Pet damage.
True.
They cannot fix pet damage. They don't understand it. They don't understand how the pet damage stuff works. They're never gonna be able to fix it. You just can't do anything about it. So like I actually think they have a good amount of transparency, and I'll be honest with you, I like the fact that they keep certain things about the game hidden. Maybe not everything, but like one of my favorite memories, one of my fondest memories of the game was discovering as the first person really to discover how to gather dead tree essence. Right. And because I was super into the lore and stuff, and I happened to be gathering in Kama Sylvia, and I saw something and I happened to check it out. I was like, oh my God, I stumbled onto this really cool secret, and it made me a lot of silver because of it. And then everybody else figured out how to do it, and that's fine. But like, it was a lot of fun. That was really cool. And I liked that it allowed me to go out into the world. And there was this certain mystery that like, maybe I'm like the first player to like discover this. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm one of the first ones that maybe is doing this. You know what I mean? Knowledge is power in that kind of an environment where you hide things from your player. And I like the fact that like you encourage players to be smart, go out and adventure, because you don't actually go out and adventure if everything's already discovered. If the blank edges of the map are completely filled in, there's no real reason to go out to the fringes of the world, right? Like, so I like how transparent they are.
You're 100%. I'm 100% on board with you on that aspect of the game. I'm talking about PvP specifically should be like 100% transparent. I want to see all the numbers on it.
Right. No. So and I agree. I think that there was like when we started the game. Oh, dude, when I got it, oh my God, you couldn't even see enhancement rates. There's like a line. There's like a line, dude. Like you gotta at least show us something. I forgot about that. Like, oh my God, you're just clicking and you're like, I have no idea. You're clicking like a tri-ogre on like a 97 stack. You have no idea what you are doing. Like people had to data mine and they were like, that's illegal. And the people that got data mined got banned, but we dubbed them heroes and erected sculptures of them. Like we because like that was the only way to figure stuff out. So like and also accuracy was hidden. There was a long time in the game where there was like this cult of people in the game, more than just a cult. It was a lot of people thought that Laverto actually had more damage on it than Zarka did. And so like there was like this wild amount of people that were just swore by Laverto, and then they finally put the stats for the weapons, like the accuracy numbers, things people take for granted today, the accuracy numbers, the hidden AP, and the monster damage. They finally listed that out, and everyone was like, never mind, Zarka's like way better.
Imagine.
We've been telling you for years. But yeah, no, so I think there is a certain amount of transparency that you kind of have to get past. You shouldn't make your players like try to experiment with some of that stuff. But then again, a lot of that was kind of fun. Like again, like it was just kind of fun to like try to experiment around with your own builds and stuff. So I don't know, I found that a lot of fun. Okay, all right, so we're gonna move on to our next topic here, and this is, I know Tiltus has been wanting to talk about this forever, but technically it was Jay that brought it up this week.
Yeah, this was Jay this week. Yeah,
it was Jay that brought it up this week. So to continue our discussion of BDO as like a whole, the combat system in BDO is very unique, as we discussed before. From the action combat to the overall balance approaches that they take. Most notably, there is no Holy Trinity in this game. In almost every other, I think in basically every single other MMO that exists, they have used the Holy Trinity of there's like tank classes, there are healing support classes, and then there are DPS classes, right? And do you think that our combat would be better if it was structured this way? Or do you think that BDO is objectively better because it's not structured this way? Jay, it was your topic. You haven't talked in a while. Jay, what do you think?
Well, I did play World of Warcraft for about a year, and I did really enjoy the Trinity role aspect of tank, healer, DPS. Like the dynamic of it is just so effective, right? That sometimes you just don't even need communication to work well together, right? The tank knows their role. Their job is to take aggro and keep the other two safe. The healer is to support the tank and DPS to keep them alive, and then DPS is to kill the enemies, right? Everybody has a clear role, and so that's why it's so effective. But I think BDO is definitely literally built differently in a way that I'm not sure the Trinity role would work well. I do enjoy the fact that I can choose any class and they will do fairly well in most aspects of the game. So I am kind of leaning more towards BDO to keep doing its thing and yeah.
Really? You literally play the one class in the game that cannot.
That's what I was just thinking.
You gotta be kidding me right now. I thought for sure he's gonna be like, "Holy, in the name of the healer, the tank, and the goddamn DPS." You know, like I thought for sure.
Goddamn DPS.
Surprise, plot twist.
Oh my god, bro.
The shy player is like, keep it the way it is.
Yeah, no kidding, bro. Absolutely no kidding. Tiltus?
So I love BDO's roles in quotation marks that they have. I think that it lends itself more to every player feeling like they have an impact on the game or on the grind or on the PvP that they're doing, because every class can do damage, and Shy is such a unique class in that aspect of being one of the only major supporting classes for PvP. So I think BDO hits the nail on the head. I think it's why so many players, when they get hooked on BDO, they stay in BDO forever and they can't ever escape, because you go back to something and all of a sudden now you're a tank, but now you do no damage. It's like, well, this is kind of fun, but like when I go play Final Fantasy 14, like I have to be a DPS. I can't play a tank, which is what I played before I ever played BDO. I was a tank player. So like I can't go back to being a tank now. I have to do damage because BDO's broke me that way. That being said, I do wish that there were a little, just a smidge, like more support or tank oriented classes that still did damage but had more survivability or things like that based on the class. Because it's so close. Like it used to be so close, like Mystic and Striker, you know, like were almost invulnerable to magic classes back in the day, which I still get flashbacks about. But it was a unique aspect to that class where it was like, all right, if a magic class hits these classes, they have way more survivability, which was unique. And I like, as a DK player, I hated it, but as a MMO player, I liked that it was still versatile enough to where it was like, there are some soft counters in certain matchups. So I would like to see them kind of change back just a little bit more towards that of like, hey, these classes do have roles. They can still kill everything and anything can kill them, but there are things that they lend themselves to being better at.
Yeah, I think that honestly, that fits perfectly. That was exactly what you're like. I want a tank, but I also want a DPS. Valkyrie main.
Exactly. See, now you understand. I played Nova before that. You understand.
That checked out. The Shy telling me that they didn't want Holy Trinity. That was a curveball. I was not ready for that one.
I'm not a Shy main. I'm just a Shy tag. There's a difference.
He's a Woosa main.
I'm a Woosa main now.
I think this is a super complex issue. I think that it's a bit of a double-edged sword. If you have the Holy Trinity, it makes PvP much more approachable for a lot of players because they inherently understand when they pick up the class what they're supposed to be doing. I can't tell you how many players I've been coaching, hundreds to thousands of players for years as they've cycled in and out of the guilds that I've been in, about where to stand in PvP, what their role is in PvP, because they don't tell you. Like Warrior, what is Warrior's role in large scale PvP? You know what? We're just gonna do this as an exercise. What, Jay? Where do you think a warrior should be standing in large scale PvP? If we're about to engage, let's say we're about to go for a big engage, where do you think a warrior should be standing? Awakening warrior.
Awakening warrior. Oh, well, my default answer is there are rat class. They should be behind the enemy. Is that right?
So behind enemy, do you think 180 degrees behind the offense ball, the enemy offense ball? I'm just throwing it out there. Don't laugh at yourself. It's not a bad answer. It's not a bad answer.
They move around fast.
It's not a bad answer. It's also not a great answer, but that's no.
Do you want to know? Do you want to know where that Awakening Warrior is actually supposed to be?
Where?
On the bench. I'm sorry.
Right next to the shot caller. Therefore, when the ninja pops out of stealth to grab me while I'm screaming at my ball, he can grab the ninja. That's where they're supposed to be. But
so you think mid ball? You think like mid ball?
No. They're front. Oh, I'm the front line. I play Valk. I am the front line.
Okay, so where should the warrior be? Is my question.
Next to me.
So that you think it's a frontline class?
Class.
Okay, so if you're engaging you think they're diving in with the boys. If you are a
Q block super armor class, you should be standing in the front with your Q block up until the moment of engage now happens.
All right.
Then you balls deep it.
Okay, and so here we you meet this. Like these are people that have been playing. You guys have both been playing the game for many years, like over 5 years for both of you, right? And myself as well. And there's no necessarily correct answer here. Awakening Warrior stands wherever the fuck it wants. You could play it as a peel class. You could play it as a flank class, which Jay is so crudely trying to allude to. You could play it out on the flank. Honestly, I prefer to see it played as like a flanking peel class. So like unless we're hard diving and he sees an opportunity to kind of go outside the fight and get in there onto the enemy backline, I feel like he does an amazing job of stopping divers. Stopping Succession Lawns, stopping like the Hashashin, stopping all of these rat classes that come in. It does a great job. It has defensive DP buffs and support buffs for its allies. I think it does a great job there as well. Frontline, the problem with it trying to frontline is that you just almost all of your protections are frontal guarded. So if you dive in with the Zerkers and the Valkyries, you're just dead on arrival. You're toast. And so it just doesn't have that durability. But the point I'm trying to make here is that like the fact that we don't have the clean cut healer, DPS, and tank classes makes it very difficult for players to understand and approach PvP in a practical way. Right? Like if players have been playing the game for 7 years, some of the most expert, foremost people on their classes and things cannot concretely tell you where a warrior, even then that's the first class. Right? Like we could go through every class in the game. And maybe it's a little more concrete on those classes too, but I think it does make PvP relatively hard to approach. And I think that if they went towards a healer, like this Holy Trinity approach, I think it would make it a little bit easier. However, I don't think that they really have to kind of go that way. I think that they should release more classes, a lot like Woosa, that play, like Awakening Woosa, that are designed to play not as a flanking melee assassin. No more flanking melee assassins. The problem is they have released so many assassin classes in the game. Whether it be Kuno, Ninja, Lon, Hashashin, like Awakening Nova, God, what am I meant? Like Musa, Mewa, like most of the classes in the game are all flanking assassins. And at a certain point, it takes all the fun out of large scale PvP because there's no more guidance. People just have to it's just this giant skirmish. So like they need to exactly. So like they gotta sway this a little bit more towards, they gotta release a couple more healers, a couple more tanks. I agree with Tiltus that they should release a couple more shy like classes, but there's actually a correct way to do this. As the game approaches a late game state where everyone's got their AP set finished, right? Where we're like really getting there. You can turn around and you can look at in a class like an Awakening Mystic. I know I'm just dusting the cobwebs off of that fucking class.
Don't bring that class back.
You can turn around to Awakening Mystic and say, what if we just put a stupid amount of DP on an Awakening Mystic and let it play like a tank? Right? It's got the vacuum, it's got a bunch, it's got all kinds of utilities, slows everywhere, AoEs, like just a really solid disruption class, right? So like I actually think that we as a community could naturally push toward more of a Holy Trinity setup as people reach these end game builds like Nova, for example, Succession Nova. As long as you've got your AP set for grinding and things and you're an end game player, you could theoretically play a tank Succession Nova.
That
and
plus
get away
50
with it.
Q block helps.
Yeah, and get away with it. Like you've got your wall there, you've got other support style skills, and you're very disruptive in things like this. Or a DP Valkyrie, for example, would be like a DP Awakening Valkyrie. Yes, you take away the aspect of your ultimate from it, but like,
but now you're always doing your support skills all the time,
and you would just be a unit of supporting your offense ball, right? So like, I think that we might actually flow towards that a little bit. But yeah, I think that the biggest problem with not doing the Holy Trinity is also its greatest strength. Its greatest strength is that it makes PvP very complex, right? Like super hard to understand large scale PvP as a concept for a newer player or even a veteran player that's approaching it for the first time. You're like, oh my God, there's so much stuff going on. Like you're just overwhelmed. And I think that deters a lot of players, but I also think that's why a lot of players like our PvP system so much is because it's so dynamic. It's so complex. So like I said, it's a double-edged sword, but it's something that people definitely, like you could definitely go either way. With that discussion all the way to the bank. Now, something I want to touch on next is actually class customization. And Jay, again, this is one of your topics that you wanted to bring up here. We're going to set aside Succession and Awakening for a moment. Setting aside Succession and Awakening, the only three real ways to customize your character in this game are Raboms, core skills, and add-ons. Right? Those three things. Do you guys feel like there should be more customization in the game outside of like Suck and Awakening? We'll start with Tiltus here.
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And it goes back to what Blue and I kind of both said in that last part too. Is like the classes already kind of exist to be played certain ways. That there were themes when they created a lot of these classes that if we just kind of gave them the option to like really spec hard into those themes, they would, I think, succeed really well in what their identity was originally. And also kind of balance everything out to where you do have more classes that feel like they're useful. Because I had a guy in my guild for a long time that forced Awakened Mystic for as long as his mental could take it. He refused to not play it in PvP because he enjoyed the Disruptor. That was his thing.
Oh, yeah.
He loved to play that play style. He's like, I don't really care about the kills, but I love setting it up. I love being that guy. But then he's like, but the class doesn't lend itself to doing that. So if you gave him like more specs to be able to be a Disruptor, I think people would find their niche of things that they really enjoyed. So I absolutely think there should be more skill customization that lends itself more to diversifying the class that we already have. Because I think it would be really important. If I could, as a shot caller, if I could spec my Valk to be a support goddess, I would 110% do it, and I wouldn't think twice about it because I am not a fragger. I am not a bomber. I hate going in first, but I do it because I'm the Valk. If I could stand next to my witch wizards and just heal and PA with them and do all that, and you gave me that spec, and then I could also go in and bomb sometimes, like when I'm really feeling spicy, I would absolutely love that. I love playing the setup class. That's why I played Nova as well, because a lot of the retreat mechanics, putting down the wall as a Nova is the most satisfying thing when you're getting engaged on. You're like, boop, nope.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying. So I love being either like the playmaker or the support aspect of it. But Valkyrie is such Awakened Valk almost feels very one-dimensional in large-scale PvP of like, feed me, I'm going in. That it's hard to break out of that mold sometimes. So I would like more customization to be able to see classes like really excel at these little niches that the player base kind of develops for the class, and more customization would be a great way to do that, I think. Right.
Yeah, that's how I tell people when they start playing Awakening Valkyrie and they're terrible. Is I tell them to focus on one aspect. It's such a dynamic class, one of the hardest classes to position and play in the whole game in large scale PvP for sure. And so what I tell them typically is you need to focus on one thing first. Like just focus on support skills, right? Like focus on nailing every one of your support skills and really understanding how you should be positioning when you're playing like a support. Then we're going to feed you BSR, and then you can focus on your bombing, right? And then you can put the two together.
Yep.
But yeah, I agree. I think there should be more customization. Jay, it was your subject, so what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would love for more options to specialize my class towards a specific playstyle. I remember for Shy, before the 4 buff spells, right? The speed buff, the HP buff, the BSR buff, and the resistance buff. They had 3 levels, right? And you can only choose one of them to be a level 3 buff, so you can make one of those buffs inherently stronger.
And then they took it away.
And then they just gave everybody level 3 buffs. Yeah. you could just have all level 3 buffs. So I mean, at the same time, it's a huge buff for Shy, right? To have all 3 buffs at level 3. But I also think it took away from that sort of unique, you're speccing into this,
yes. Yeah.
And I think if that was an available thing for other classes, let's say I want to improve my Meteor, right? My Meteor is a little bit stronger than my Blizzard, or vice versa, or something like that for like Wizard. And then for other classes too, maybe I want to make on Valk, I want to make my heal stronger, but at the same time, it would lock me out of my stronger DPS spells, but allows me to have more support, or vice versa. When I choose my higher DPS spells, it locks me out of my better support spells. You know what I mean?
There it is. And there it is. I've walked you guys into the answer. You guys just didn't know what I was doing. I was being a little crafty little devil. We go back to this idea of the Holy Trinity. They don't have to release classes on release that give you this idea of a Holy Trinity. Oh, it must be a tank. It must be a healer. It must be a DPS. No. We need more customization on our classes so that if we want to in large scale, so I'm grinding, right? Let's say you're grinding on a Valkyrie. I would have all my DPS specs out, just pounding ass as I go through all the different mobs. Then I go to war and I immediately respec to one of my different skill setups if they gave us enough options, and I'm playing the full support tank Valkyrie when I go into war. Right? So you get this access of the Holy Trinity while maintaining, okay, this class needs to be able to open world at a reasonable level.
Yep.
Right. Like
and
I
open
think
world the way the player wants to is the big thing.
Right. And so now we're going to push into the, and I completely agree, we absolutely need more customization on various skills, a lot like Succession, Witch, and Wizard are currently designed. You can pick. Every single skill has, you can pick, okay, do I want it to have a CC, or do I want it to be melee, or do I want it to have a slow on it, right? Because like there's different versions of every skill. We should have more stuff like that, more options like that. I personally like to play Suck Witch where, and this is going to sound crazy, I take Voltaic and I take Aqua Jail. And the reason I do that in most cases is because I'm the shot caller. So I also like the idea. So like it's unique to me, right? But like that's the whole point of customization. Like I want to be able, I want to have the utility of a split teleport so that I can go in with the main ball, drop the Voltaic, drop the Aqua Jail, slow everybody, get my heals off, and then TP out without dying. Right. And still have the mobility that Succession offers me. And so like, I think that's the direction that they should definitely go in to allow players to customize their stuff. But if we look over at Succession and Awakening now, these are like the two big examples of like, okay, these are the two, this is like the branched path, right? You can either go this way with your class or you can go that way with your class. And I'll admit some of the Successions don't feel much different than the Awakenings. Aside from maybe APM usage. But a lot of them do a great job of allowing you to play the class in two different ways. Like Ranger, for example. Succession Ranger and Awakening Ranger make the class very, very different from each other.
Yep.
And
Suck
like,
DK is very much the same way.
Yeah, Succession DK and Awakening DK function very differently from one another. Is it even possible to have another path? Succession, Awakening, and Reformed, or I don't know, whatever the path you wanted to go, a third spec. Do you guys think a third spec is even possible at this point? We're constantly releasing new classes. Do you even think that they're able to keep up with that? Jay, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't think Vita would come out with a brand new third spec for all 26 classes and counting. But I mean, if I were to think of what it would be, I would hope maybe it would focus on more on utility. So I don't know, maybe for example, Valkyrie or Nova would get a third spec focusing on tank oriented spells, and classes like Witch and Wizard would maybe have a third spec focusing on support utility. So maybe that would be another way to bring the Holy Trinity into BDO, or at least aspects of it into a few of the classes.
Yeah. Tiltus, you think it's possible?
I think it is 110% possible, and I've already said my piece about the classes multiple times, but I would really like them to just go back and look at the classes and look at like large scale PvP, because we all already kind of know like our PvE setup is DPS oriented. 110%. That's what it is. It is how many mobs can you kill in the allotted amount of time? How much trash loot can you gain? That is our thing. Even the new region is going to be oriented like that. There's a timed list of, these players killed this boss in X amount of time. So we already know that PvE is all DPS oriented. There is no Holy Trinity in that. There's no Holy Trinity in the dungeon. It is just, throw damage down, do the mechanics. You're good. If we want BDO to remain as its, like one of its core aspects of the game is PvP, then I think having a third spec that just allows players to really focus on whatever it is that they want to do with the class and make it that. There's so many different options you could do it. If you just took the majority of the melee classes in the game that aren't assassins and you put a tank spec on them, where their third spec would be tank, there would be a ton of players that would do that. I know 110% there would. If you took and they did, reduce damage, even more reduced damage. If you took the caster classes and you gave them a third spec that was all support focused, there was a bunch of people that would take that.
Yes, sir.
I don't know what you would do for the assassins. They're kind of assassins, so I don't know what you do for them. You can make disruptors, maybe, or something along that line.
Pre-engage. You can make like a strictly pre-engage disruption setup, but no damage. And then you could have a damage spec that's just like it takes away all that disruption and makes it more of a. Right, so that way when your stealthies go in, you have one set that pre-engages. They go in, they drop all the CCs, all the annoying things, all the slows, all that stuff, and then you've got your damage dealers that come in a second after them, and they do all the damage, and then you've got your main ball that collapses in on top. And I mean, there's a lot of different aspects that you could do, but I would love to see something like that where they just took the classes, they really took the identity of the class, and they just really just full sent it all the way home. Kuno would be a large, AoE disruptor. Hash, I don't know what you would do with the assassins, but like all the melee classes could all of a sudden have these super tanky. Forget about Hash, we're fine.
Yeah, well, all the frontline classes all of a sudden get a tanky spec. All the casters suddenly get a support spec. You could even support spec Archer because it already has some support skills built into it. There's all these different things that you could do that I think would be really interesting. So I would love to see a third spec. I think they 110% should do it. The game's old enough now to where a lot of the classes outside of the new classes are starting to feel kind of old. Like I know what all the classes do. I know what the play styles are all going to be for every single class that I come across. I would like to see them shake it up. And I think I've already said it once, but I think they need to back off on introducing new classes into the game for a little bit and just brush up the existing systems that we have and really focus in on let's hone these systems and make them really good and give classes their identity back. Cause like some classes struggle with identity really bad. Or there's too many classes that do the exact same thing. So mix it up, give them their core identities back. Cause I feel like all assassins are kind of all the same way now. They're all just assassins. They all just go in and drop big nukes. Your BSR bombers all kind of fall into the same niche of, hey, we're BSR bombers. I don't see very many strikers and mystics anymore, so it feels bad for those guys. But I feel like some classes kind of lost their identity of the class, what made them interesting. Even Zerker. I mean, Zerker's got a really strong class identity now, but if you remember, Awakened Zerker's got like 4 grabs. There used to be a very serious niche for Awakened Zerkers Q buffing and just grab botting. That was their thing. They were ranged DPS and grab bots.
God, that was so much fun and interactive. I'm so glad that that's not in the game anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing, but like now they're just BSR bombers, so it's kind of weird.
I'm gonna grab them, and then I'm gonna grab them again, and this is the tricky part. I'm gonna grab them again, and then guess what? I'm gonna grab them again. And they could just do that to you until you were dead. It was miserable. Anyway.
But yeah, so third spec, absolutely. I think it's possible. I think it should be in the game. I think the game's at about the time where it needs something new to shake up the way that all the classes are kind of played. Because
I agree.
It's gotten a little like the classes just feel stale feeling now. Like even Woosa and Megu to me, like fighting against them feels stale because I played against Sage for so long that now I run into these classes and I'm like, okay, these classes all have the same identity. They're all doing the same thing. I understand what these classes, current versions, not Awakening. I'm sure those will mix that up just a little bit, but it would be interesting to see them just take all of it and just shake it up like a snow globe and be like, all right, there you go. Have fun.
Yeah.
Make a new path.
The game has always traditionally been doing its best when they've come out with Awakening and then Succession. boom, boom. Because that shakes things up the most. And I'm going to be honest with you, this like Jay's argument is what most people are going to say that stand on the other side of the fence. Like, oh, well, I mean, there's 26 classes now. I don't think they have the manpower, blah, blah, blah. And my answer is it's all about the fucking money. Bro, this is literally just a question of money, and they have enough money. We can do this. You just have to hire enough people to get the job done. That and that I think is what definitely should happen. That should be like the next big update, because really we're in this cycle of, okay, we get some classes, we get an expansion, we get some classes, we get some expansion. And the last time they introduced the Magnus to us, which was cool. It's amazing. I'm interested to see what their next content is going to be, and I'm going to be on it. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I really, really want it. I really want it to be like another spec for the various classes of the game, for all of the different classes in the game, so that you can choose to play your class in that way, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's not even oriented towards grinding at all. Maybe you don't grind in that spec at all. Maybe it's just opted for like a way to play your class in PvP. Who freaking knows? But like, I really, really would like to see them do that. That being said, if we look over at Succession a little bit, I kind of want to talk. Jay had mentioned this. The idea of core skills. Now, for the listeners that don't know, core skills are something that you can only acquire in Awakening, and they take one of your Awakening skills and they super buff it. Whether they give it protection or they give it a CC, they make one of your Awakening skills better. Now, Jay, you suggested the idea that maybe Succession might also get, like, should we give Succession access to the core skills? I have very strong thoughts on this, so I won't actually allude to those quite yet. Jay, what do you think? Do you think that Succession should get access to the core skills?
I mean, I would imagine that, the community would be very vocal and passionate about core skills being added to Succession. Succession's classes already perform extremely well, even without core skills. I mean, as I mentioned before, I always welcome class skill customizations, and core skills would give Succession classes more class customizations. I mean, I think a better way, so I had thought of a way to sort of implement it a lot better than just adding a CC or a protection. I would love to see more options of their effects. Like currently they only add a CC or protection to certain skills, right? So it would be more interesting to see some core skills change a skill mechanically. So for example, let's take the spell Voltaic Pulse from Witch, right? It's naturally a super armor spell, a circular AoE under character, right? What if the core skill maybe gave it a suck mechanic instead to pull in enemies, or perhaps a core skill that instead of a circular AoE, now it's a frontal cone attack in front of you, which has forward guard instead of super armor. So things like that would make the options more interesting. Again, this would probably be a nightmare to design and balance, but I think it would add so much more to the combat system of BDO, and I think that would be a more interesting way to add core skills to Succession and Awakening and change their change it overall. So
yeah, it's an interesting take. Tiltus?
Yeah, so I'm very much against them adding any type of more protection, damage, or CCs to core skills. But if you want to change the skill itself to do something different to allow players to customize the way it does, if you take off a CC but you add a slow, maybe that's a kind of trade-off that we could talk about with Succession, because I do agree that I think in PvP specifically, and probably in most PvE situations, that suck typically will do better than its awakened counterpart as far as damage and things of that nature and protections will go. But if you want to change the way the skill functions entirely, if you want to take a suck DK airstrike and you want to remove the the bound or knockdown or whatever on it to just be iframe super armor, and then it has no CC, that would be interesting. I would, now you're trading off one aspect of the skill for a different aspect of the skill. So if you're talking about core skills for Succession and that, I would be way more open. If you're talking about just like, hey, this skill has a CC, now it has a super armor. Okay, wrong. But
like a trade-off, right?
Yeah, a trade-off, right? You're giving a customization, but in the form of like, oh, I don't really use this skill for the CC. I would like to have this skill to have super armor instead. So now I don't have a CC, but I've got a super armor. Or, you know, I want it to have a AoE slow, or I want it to have forward guard now instead of a super armor, or, you know, something where you're mixing the skill up. You're not just buffing the skill. I would be way more open to that kind of core skill conversation, I think, for Suck.
Yeah, no, Suck can't have core skills. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah.
No. Are you nuts? There's no way. There's no way you can give. I mean, part of what makes Awakening is they gave it that core skill aspect. So regardless of whether or not you change core skills, you absolutely cannot add them to Succession. You'll just make Succession objectively better than Awakening, I think, in way too many cases. Even with one skill like that, because Succession, you're talking about front loading most of Succession on every single class in the game, has less skills than its Awakening counterpart. And that's just how it goes. And so in order to compensate, they have given Succession on every class in the game does more damage on less skills, right? If you give those same skills and you load them up even more, it's like a Big Mac, bro. We're going with another layer. Like you can't load any more stuff onto these skills and not expect the class to be over the top in PvP. However, that being said, so take away the idea of core skills out the window for Succession. Plus, you'd have riots in the streets.
True.
Like, oh man, we go back to that idea of you can't tell the player base everything; they would go insane. But like looking at core skills, I think core skills was a brilliant idea done very horribly wrong. I think that Jay is absolutely right. Instead of just adding a protection I think adding a protection or adding a CC to already standing skills is a terrible way to buff Awakening up to the point that it matches Succession. Mainly because it takes the dynamic away from PvP. I've been shoutcasting AOS matches, like big tournaments, like sponsored tournaments. And I've seen players literally change their core skill in the middle of a match. And there's no way for their opponent to actually know that they changed the core skill. So now they have a protection on a skill that normally the enemy team is going to think, okay, I can jump on this. Or, hey, he doesn't have the core on that. I'm not going to get CC'd here, right? But like the fact that you can change core skills at will, and it completely makes the class different without any indicator for your opponent. Like it just takes the dynamic out of PvP. Like you can't actually tell what core that your opponent has. So like some classes you kind of have to play around all of them at the same time, like without actually knowing which one they have. And I think that that's just terrible. I think instead you add, like you said, a vacuum or a slow or anything like that, and you have to give the core skill. When you equip a core skill, it should have a different effect. It should have some sort of different indicator so that your opponent can tell he's got the core skill on Voltaic. He's got the core skill on Fisher Wave. He's got the core skill on the Encelar jump for Valkyrie, right? Like, so that you could very concretely tell as the opponent what core skill your opponent has and play around it. I just think that they've been done relatively poorly. You can't add them to Succession, but you can rework how they've been done. And I think if they want to keep it as it currently stands, they need to add new animations for the core skills so that you know and can play around what your opponent has taken. Right? Yeah,
there's no way to know until you get hit by it.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
And then you're like, oh wait.
And I know the shy mains in the audience are like, core skills?
What core skills?
You guys have core skills? Core skills?
I mean, Shy was the first class that kind of remotely had a core skill, right? Where like Jay mentioned before, you could just pick which of the buffs you wanted to have super buff. I mean, it's almost always the HP in capped content. But you could theoretically, like, you could talk to the other Shies. I would do this before everywhere. When I played Shy as a shot caller in T1s, I was like, all right, what are you guys taking? All right, I'm going to take the resistance one, or I'm going to take that one so that we have all three covered. You know what I mean?
That's what we did in Olin's Valley if we had multiple Shy.
Yeah, super cool, bro. It's like very interactive and fun. And then they were like, no, you just take them all. And we're like, okay, like, all
have them all.
Okay.
You can just have
Why don't we just give everyone all the core skills? You know, that's the solution. If you want to give Succession all the core skills, or you want to give Succession their choice of a core skill, Awakening gets all of their core skills.
Yeah.
Take your pick. Take your pick.
God.
Or we can leave it as it is, folks. Like
my DK is screaming from broken jail somewhere. Can you imagine DK with all the core skills?
Sweet mother of Christ. Like, honestly, can you imagine Awakening Witch with the core skills? I can. It's exactly the same as it is now. That's still terrible. All right. Okay. So now I want to move into, we've taken a good chunk of time here. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to our first forum post, which I want to talk about before we jump into the Woosa Awakening. And I don't know if you guys had time to read this post, but I'm going to actually read the post, parts of the post, and then we'll discuss it. And then I'll read the next part of the post, and then we'll discuss it. So this first guy, Dionysosx, suggests, he says, you all probably don't care much, but I'm quitting BDO. I have actually been playing for 4 months, and I've been looking at the new systems and content that are available for the new region, and I don't like what I saw. Why I am quitting, on the other hand, my interest some and reflect what other players feel. Sorry, I'm trying to stumble through. His grammar is a little rough. BDO's current direction is a 180-degree turn. BDO used to be a unique in what it offered in an MMORPG genre, a high-quality, full open-world sandbox PvX game. Since PA took over the game, I haven't seen a single new system or content in the sense of the old version of a sandbox PvX game. All the new systems and content went more towards theme park casual, like other MMORPGs on the market. Let's stop there for a second before we get into his bullet points. Do you feel that the new content since PA has taken over has actually narrowed your scope of the game in any way? Do you feel like they said you have to do this content in order to do other content? Because that's kind of like at the heart of a theme park MMOs. It kind of guides you through the MMO step by step by step. Do you feel that the content that PA has released, do you agree with him? Yes or no so far? Tiltus?
The only linear thing I can think of would be seasonal. Outside of seasonal, the game's still very much, I haven't done the main quest on my Valk. I refuse to do it at this point because it's the old main quest and I can't skip it. So like, so I don't feel that it is like super restrictive on what you can do. Now, I feel like if you're a brand new player jumping into the game for the first time, it's probably good that they're seasonal. Let's be honest here. The game's pretty complex. So the only linear path of progression that I see existing in the game where it kind of holds your hand and, you know, shows you along is seasonal. But with BDO being as complex as it is, I don't see that as a bad linear thing. And then once you get done with the seasonal, you are fed to the wolves. There is no helping you after that. You know, it's good luck. You're 550. Have fun. Enjoy it. So no would be my, no with the caveat of seasonal.
Okay. Jay?
Yeah, pretty much agree with Tiltus that seasonal is the only one where they kind of hold your hand and give you all these like, Tuvala gear, right? The Tuvala Timmies. But then, afterwards, as Tiltus said, they feed you to the wolves, right? Every time I get a lot of new players come into my chat and they always ask me, hey, what do I do after seasonal, right? It seems like after that, like the possibilities are endless. So I do disagree with the statement that this is what's called a theme park MMO. Maybe it might be headed in that direction. I don't know, but I mean, I personally wouldn't mind if it did because I did enjoy the other theme park MMOs like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy, and as we all know, those MMOs are successful, right? There's a reason why they are successful. So, if BDO is trying to chase that success, I don't know if that's a bad thing for the game overall. I don't know. I just might not please everyone,
Yeah, so I agree and I disagree with them. I disagree in things like the Magnus and various like the expansions and things have actually been very much so in their line with like the sandbox MMO. They're not forcing you to do content one way or another. However, I will say that the way season has been structured and continues to progress, what do you have to do to get through season? You have to grind. You must grind. You can't life skill. You can't do other things. You must grind. You have to do like your weekly for seasonal. You have to go kill X amount of mobs. You can't life skill. You can't do you can't sail, right? You can't.
That's true.
You can't do anything else. You literally, and so it does. It's very much. He's not wrong. It definitely is throttle. And then you get to your just outside of season. What's the next thing you have to do? Think ahead. Oh, and now I have to do my Jatinia daily. Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can grind and get it done 2 times faster, or you can life skill and get it done in over half a year. So again, we're gonna grind. Also, what about the pen system? Or you have to grind again, right? You can't really life skill for that. You can't really sail for that. You can't really go out and like underwater gather for that, or do whatever you want, or like build your residence for that. There's no options here. So like, while I agree with Tiltus that like there's a fundamental, like when before season existed, it was too much of a sandbox. Like you need to guide new players to a point and then set them loose on the world. But
tutorial island.
Right. But also even in the tutorial, you should give them options, right? Let them life skill their way all the way through to pen to Volagir. That's a crazy concept. That's a crazy idea.
I got a crazier concept for you.
They could gather for time-filled blackstones. They could hunt for ore, right?
Instead of APDP to Volagir, you give them life skill to Volagir.
I mean, they kind of have that, yeah, right? Like, yeah, right. Like a life skill to Volagir that gets you to what, duo manas?
Yeah,
right?
The equivalent.
Duo manas
something
equivalent.
in that ballpark. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
That'd like something sick. Like that allows players to still manage that like theme park aspect, but is still guiding them. You still have them guided right on the path. I think that would help them tremendously, especially since then they could make a full set. I like that, Tiltus, because they could make a full set of Pen Tavala combat gear, and they could do the Pen Tavala life skilling gear, which is like Duo Manos. That way, when they get out of seasonal and they want to look at the world, they can say, you know, I kind of like life skilling. I think I'm going to give that a shot. And they have a system to work with. They don't have to now drop, 25, 30 billion on a life skilling set that's going to make them, to try to make them as much money as they can currently make grinding at some of these spots. Right.
And honestly, that's a small when they're ready for the next upgrade.
Literally, yeah, yes. That's true. The cycle of life and death. But yeah, I actually do agree with him so far on most things, but like I think that's really only has to do with seasonal and stuff. As far as the new content that we're releasing with the classes, expansions, Magnus, and things like this, no, I don't feel like it's any less of a sandbox than it was before. But as far as how they're approaching seasonal, absolutely. Okay, so let's go through his first couple of points here. Number one, for the casual and solo player, with the introduction of season server accessibility, it was made easier for casual players, but at the same time, it devalued the early game experience and the joy of armor upgrades, the free discovery of the open world, and looking for your own adventure. Forcing a new player to chase through the main storyline and complete a linear task through a battle pass contradicts the concept of a sandbox game. Simply getting Tet boss gear directly or indirectly devalues any other armor that has been hard earned. I'll start with this one. I disagree with this pretty concretely. Like the idea that like players should have to earn their keep because like it's a better experience for them, bro. They are not having a good time in sub try boss gear. They are not having a good time in BDO, right? So like getting them to the point of practicality sooner, even if it is just handing it to them through the main story, in my opinion, is just a W. I don't see that as like a moving toward a sandbox. I see that as just necessary evolution of the game as it progresses forward. But what do you guys think, Tiltus?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that one. It's like the whole argument of I pre-ordered my first dandy for 700 mil at base.
Ooh.
Do I wish other players had to experience that? Absolutely not. It was horrible. You know, like my first dandy was 700 mil. You know, that was before the central market rework. So I think that the game does not open itself up to you as a game until you really hit about the old soft cap APDP brackets. That's when the game starts feeling like, oh, okay, I can go to all these different spots. I can actually invest in the grinding of the game. I can actually, you know, do my Gahas, or I can do my centaurs, or, you know, whatever. I can do polys, you know, all that kind of stuff at a decent rate, you know. So punishing players just because we had to suffer through pre-ordering our first dandy at 700 mil, I don't think is a good mentality to have for new players, because the game is
well, his argument was that was fun. His
Oh, no,
argument
it's-
was
it's
that was
brutal. It's
fun,
not
and we
fun.
should not deprive players of the experience of having to do that for the first time. I'm not sure. That's
Do
his
you-
argument.
Do you understand? When I bought my Dandy, I was grinding Desert Fogans for like 60 mil an hour.
Woo! When I bought my Dandy, I'll do you one better. When I bought my Dandy, I was grinding Elric Shrine for count it, 6 million, not 60 million, 6 million silver an hour. Okay.
How much
Like-
did you buy the Dandy for?
340 million. Do the math.
Yeah, yours was a lot worse than mine.
That rough. That was rough. But yeah, and I would not wish that. Was it fun? I'll be honest with you. Actually, yeah. But like, also, you can't expect a new player that's getting into the game to do that.
Yeah, when there's people like Jay running around, you can't. There's no like.
Yeah,
that player
Jay,
runs into Jay. If
gosh.
that player runs into Jay one time in an open world PvP situation,
Takes an
what do
L
you
to a
do?
shy
There's
and a
no
DFS.
hope.
Like,
if I run into Jay in an open world situation, there's no hope. But like, especially for a player that literally gets like tickled by like some stray skill, and he's like, "Oh, I'm dead." Like,
Yep.
No.
Jay, what do you think?
I don't think there's too much to say. I mean, this
Yeah.
all gives me back in my day vibes, you know.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so I think getting players up to speed to the relevant content is just how it works. You know, this is modern days,
Yep.
you know, modern day BDO, you know, society, blah blah blah.
Every
Okay,
MMO
all right.
has it in some form
So-
or fashion.
Yeah.
Let's move into the meatiest part of the post. This is a controversial one. So number 2, he says separation of PvP and PvE with instances. The great and exciting thing about PvX content systems is that they creates dynamic gameplay. While you are grinding in one spot at any time, at least one player could come and attack you. Those are the moments where the dull grind is broken and perhaps friendships or enemies are created and where memories are made. Sure, that still exists, but BA did take a lot out of those experiences, and you experience them less and less each time. You have a lot more good alternative spots to grind today than you used to. Competition that for many was the main reason for alliances or war is becoming less and less. And again, reduced social interaction. If you want PvP action, you go to AOS, which is in the instance and freed from the influences of the open world game. Dynamics, in the sense described above, are no longer present. We have also seen the first steps towards instance PvE content with the Marnie's Realm. More will be added with the upcoming boss rush. Okay, do you guys agree with him? Jay, we'll start with you.
It is definitely true that a lot of memories can be made in open world, but at least for me, as someone who played an Awakening Witch for 5 years, I did not make very good memories of people grabbing me and throwing me out of my grind spot. So I kind of appreciate the, you know, those quality of life stuff that makes me not have to deal with that, especially continuous care, you know? So I
Oh my God.
Jay's over here like he lost me. He lost me at perhaps friendships are made. I've never seen somebody
I've got a
kill
story.
Jay and made a
I've
friend.
got a story.
You know?
I have a story.
Oh, go ahead.
So my current guild that I am in is the Epidemic, or is Epidemic now. We finally got rid of the and back the only way I met my current GM is because we shared a home. So the guild I was in, Joker and the Epidemic, shared a home server, and I went to Gahaz because Gahaz was like the spot below Histria and Ackman when you were still not quite there, but you could still make somewhat good money there. And I went there and I killed my GM in his spot, and I said, "Spot taken." He tried to grief me in that spot for about 5 minutes, and I killed him repeatedly. He left. Not even 5 minutes pass. I'm on my DK at the time. Not even 5 minutes pass. A mystic comes into my spot, kills me once, and I say, "My bad, the spot's yours." So I go to the cliff rotation. And who happens to be there? The GM of my guild.
It's the
So I
food
kill
chain.
him again.
It's the
And I
food
tell him,
chain, bro.
"Spot
Oh,
taken."
no.
Fast forward like 2 or 3 months later, the guild I'm in dies. I take a little break for about 2 months from BDO. One of my friends messaged me and he goes, "Hey, I'm in a new guild. You should come back to the game. I'm in the Epidemic." And I went, oh,
Oh
no.
no. Oh no.
And so I joined the VC and I was like, hey, Lava. And he was like, who is this? And he was like, oh no. And so that was actually the start of me and Llama's friendship, was the fact that I killed him multiple times at Gahaz, went from one spot to the next spot and kicked him out of both of them. So there is some truth to open world actually like really forcing social interactions. And it is one of the flaws, I think, with the current amount of grind spots that are available in the game. I do agree that there are if I want to make money and not be bothered, there are plenty of places that I can go to make a decent amount of money, and I will never see another player as long as I'm there. It is rare that you run into other players. And while I like that when I want to grind, there's also a part of me that's kind of like, I don't have interactions with players anymore. Like, if I don't want to interact with a player, I just go wherever I want, or go to a Marnie's realm and go wherever I want. That being said, there are still forced interactions that you will have to deal with. If you grind for the pot piece, which a bunch of my guildies are, not me because I refuse to do it, they'll tell you, I got karma bombed yesterday by this guy. I went -1 mil. That's why there's a deck up. So there is some truth to that, and I would like to see there be a little bit more competitions between the spots to funnel players at least a little bit more to, hey, you have, Gyphins, top tier, you have Centaurs is below that, Olens is in there somewhere, whatever. And then you've got all these other, spots that aren't as good as Centaurs, but you can still make money at, and then maybe just kind of gut the rest of them outside of like the Elvia realms or the Elvia realms. Because like there's just players all over the place now. Like, when's the last time you grinded and you honestly ran into a player that was like, yeah, I'm here to grief you at your rotation?
It's been a while, mainly because, well, that's not true. It's either all the time or never, and there's no in between.
If you're being hunted, yeah, it happens a lot because they'll find you. Right.
I roll up and it's like, oh, it's blue, and then they kill me, or it's blue. And I swap servers. There's like no in between. I'm like, hey man, big fan. I'm like, how long? And he's like, 8 hours. I'm like, fuck me. And then I swap servers.
Well, time to go to a different server. See you guys later.
Exactly.
Actually, I wanted to add something
about Jay, go.
when you were talking about like forced interaction. What do you guys think about like more places like Abandoned Monastery, where it literally tells the entire server, hey, there's this boss up, and you could come and steal it, Ding, 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 ding. You hear that?
That's the dinner bell.
Do we want more of that?
That's the dinner bell, baby.
Is that the Pavlov bell? Hang on. My mouth started watering.
There's one surefire way to summon Cho Nation. Like, I love those grind spots. I think those are cool because you can make money. Yeah, because you can make money at the spot, and you can make more. But like, it's announced to the whole server, and so like they can come blast you, right? I love those type of grind spots, and I'm surprised that they haven't done it again. To be honest with you,
I think it's because of the fact that everybody comes to Abandoned Monastery and takes the boss that they haven't done another one of those spots.
Well, no, I think that was intended. Like, I'm almost positive that was like they wanted people to do that. I think that I'm split on this because I have a story too. My very first interaction with open world people, I was in a PVX guild called Intrinsic Quality, long time ago. And I was doing a guild mission with my buddy Note and my buddy Avron, one of my best friends, IRL, who was playing video at the time. And we're doing this guild mission at Helms. We've got our Azula accessories on. All three of us are working together because our pets are all tier 1 and we can't pick up all the loot, right? So like we're going around, and all three of us together though, we're like pack mules, and we're like helping each other pick up all the loot, and we're doing the guild mission. And then this guy comes in and he's like, get fucked, loser, I have a duo crescent on. Like, and we just start we get turboed by like this pack of like 5 guys. Right, that are just like, haha, we have slightly more gear than you, and we're just getting absolutely turbo. And we what's the first thing we went into guild chat? We're getting griefed, and then our guild master and the officers show up. There's like 2 or 3 of them, right? And I'm like, you're still outnumbered. And I'm not joking. I spawned Node, and there's my old GM Verkanorix standing over the corpses of like 4 people, and he's like, "Go forth and grind, my child.
Don't worry, little bro. I got you.
I will handle this." And I was like, "Oh, thank God." That was one of the, but like that from that moment, I was like, I want to be that guy that like shows up and is just like the guy. You're like, "Oh he's here, baby. Let's go," like, and just start rocking up. So like, I don't know, he's right in a sense, and it's some of my fondest memories were when the boys roll up to help me with the open world PvP. Right, that's just like, it gives you the chills. But also, way back then, the difference in gear was like Azula accessories to a Duo Crescent, right? Like, and now the gear discrepancy is multiple hundreds of gear score.
Yep.
Right? Like an insurmountable, and it can, instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, we're just not quite there yet, it's, oh my God, it's an insurmountable like difference. I can't do anything. Right?
This guy's hard capped. I guess I'll just leave.
Right. And so I think that the developers have introduced these things over time. Not like, they don't intentionally really want to drive the two away from each other, but to a certain extent, they do have to like decrease the amount of bullying that can go on, because like as the top end gear score goes up, there's always going to be new players starting from the bottom, and they don't want those new players getting driven away from the game by the morons at the top of the ladder who just can't help themselves. I mean, every time, bro. I can't tell you how many times I've walked up on like a history rotation, for example, but rotation is such a strong word. I walk up and this guy is doing one pack, and then he runs to the next pack, and by the time he's finished the next pack, the first pack's up, so he runs back to the first pack again, and that's his rotation, right? But it happens to be in my like 4-room rotation that I'm trying to do, and I just let him have. I'm just like, you know what, man? You're good to go. You're fine, dude. No big deal.
If I see it pop up and say you got a compass piece, I'm coming to kill you.
That's right. Yeah. Well,
I will farm you on repeat.
Yeah, that, and there was one time where it was really tragic. One time I had an event spawn, and the way in history that you handle this is typically the event spawns. You go around, you do a rotation, and on the next cycle through, you do the event, because that's the efficient way to do it. Or you kill the tower, and then you go do your rotation, and you come back, and the event is like all the mobs are stacked on top of each other. It's really easy. I go around, and I come back, and my event is missing. And I'm like, oh no, I know this kid did not. And he tried this little rat. This little rat tried to kill the event, and then he went running down the hallway. It's a little awakening lawn. Went running down the hallway at like max speed, because I could see his ass disappearing into the distance. And I'm like, oh hell no! And I ran this guy down. It was like the most inefficient thing ever. I have like an old Supreme old moon scroll. I don't give a shit. I see red. You know what I mean? I ran that kid down, and I just turboed him. I was like,
yep.
You don't get to do my rotation anymore. And he was like, okay, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I was like, you knew what you did.
You knew what
I do not accept that. And I went back to my rotation. But again, those are some of the most fond memories that I have of a game. And I try not to bully people, but I think that the developers have introduced things to prevent people from bullying, because it can feel helpless. And that is what will make a new player quit the game. Right? When they feel like the existing player base is just such a bunch of jerks. Like, because you immediately extrapolate it. Like, this happens once or twice, and you're like, the whole tie-in player base is just full of shit. I hate everybody in digital. Donation is a bunch of scumbag. Like they get the wrong idea, right? Because most of the player base is probably not going to interrupt. They want to help foster the new player base, but like, you get those jerks. You know what I mean? And so I think those systems exist for that. I do agree, though. He's right. It does take away from those experiences quite a bit. So I do agree with him in that aspect. All right. So bullet point 3 here. With Magnus and the reworking of the first chapters, the main story quests, there will be a much greater focus on voice acted storytelling with cutscenes. All development effort and resources that could flow in. This is all development effort and resources that could be flowing into other things. Effort that could have gone into systems that are not just played once and never touched again. A typical problem with theme park MMOs. I have never once, this is the first time in all my history where I've seen someone complain that the main storyline is voice acted.
You missed me rolling my eyes really hard as soon as I got about 2 sentences into this. I'm the guy that sits here and raves about how good the first story arc actually is voice acted, and how I want the rest of the game to be story acted or voice acted. And this guy's like, No. That money could have been spent elsewhere. Fuck off.
It's a multi-billion-dollar company, Chief. Like,
really? That's what we're pulling at now?
Yeah, I agree. Jay, I would assume that you agree with us as someone that is a big fan of the main storyline. Do you feel like it takes away from the sandbox element of the game at all?
No, I don't think it takes away anything.
Yeah,
at all.
Yeah, I don't think it takes away anything.
There's a whole skip feature that's there.
What the?
If you don't ever want to do the MSQ ever again,
right?
Do it one time.
Yeah, I'm just like, what? I'm so confused. And then he's like, it won't be repeatable content. Yeah, except for the people that want to actually get any amount of quests done, and like the 14 times that I've been forced to do the main story quest. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's a tilt. I refuse to do the main storyline on my Valkyrie because it's the old one, and I have to do it. I can't skip it.
I did that quest enough. All right, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore.
More inclined to literally delete his Valkyrie, make a new one,
make a new one, exactly,
and just send it, bro.
If my life skills weren't so high, my Valk, I would have absolutely already deleted it and made a new one. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, all right. So there's more to this. There's a few more points in this post and everything, but those were kind of the main ones. And honestly, he talks about a little bit about how BDO is kind of dying as a game. And Jay, you threw up some infographics for us that show the exact opposite. Jay, do you want to explain a little bit about what those graphs and stuff told us? Just the basic premise.
I didn't really look into too much, but the graph showed, at least from let me pull it up here in my browser. At least from May 30th, the average monthly players
May 30th, 2021.
2021, yeah, 2021, it was 3.7 million. And in this month, the last 30 days, it was 7 million. So it looks like, it is going up over the last 2 years. So I don't think it is dying or anything. I think the game is still pretty in a healthy state, or at least one of the more healthier MMOs out there, compared to, I don't know.
It's doubled, right? Since Paralabus took over, it's doubled. Its monthly average players. Go ahead.
Not only that, but if you actually look at the website, we've doubled our average daily player count just in the last 3 months.
Yes.
It went from just under 200,000 to 400-something thousand. 475,000 daily players.
And I want you to wrap your head around that. The fact that we have not gotten Woosa Awakening, that we're about to get Land of the Morning Light straight into Megu Awakening, and you tell me that number's not going to triple.
Well, sorry, I was talking to some guild leaders the other day, and they were like, "Are you having trouble recruiting?" And I was like, "Honestly, no. Like, because we don't have any recs, so like it's so easy for us to fill our spots up to full if we want. Like, we put out a couple of messages like, hey, we do Node Wars, no recs. We have an experienced core, come hang out with us. We'll teach you the game. Boom! All of a sudden, I mean, Blue, your guild is like basically that all on steroids. So like,
it's juiced. It's pretty juiced, yeah.
So it's like it's not even hard. Like, I actually think it's easier to recruit right now than it's ever been in the game if you're willing to take the Timmy Tuvalas and teach them how to not be Timmy Tuvalas anymore. So
correct. Yeah, because there's so many new players. They're just they're jumping at the opportunity. To
I didn't realize I had a daily too, because that actually I mentioned it. I mentioned it in the messages that we have. But the Lazy Peon, for anybody that watches his content, did last year or at the beginning of this year, did a MMOs by average daily player count, and his average daily player count for BDO was almost spot on. He said it was 175,000 worldwide, and the infographic that we just looked at, which I'll link in chat here in a second, was like 200,000, I think, for the month of January. So, and it's doubled since then. So I think BDO is actually on the rise, surprisingly, and I think this new content, especially with it being not gear driven content, is just going to make that number go real fast. So
yeah, I think it's in a better spot than it has ever been, and it continues to rise. I mean, like, if I was putting stock in something, I would definitely put stock in PA. I do, as a content creator, right? As content creators, we have to. Right, like the game that you're making content for, you're basically putting your eggs in the basket and saying, "God, I hope that this is successful." Because if the game is not successful, we are not successful. Right? True. It's really hard to be successful as a creator when the game is dying, but when you have a good product to work with, it's much easier. Right, Jay? I think you can probably agree with that sentiment. Now, I think that we should move on. I was going to do another forum post. I don't know if we have enough time. And I really want to talk about our thoughts on Awakening Woosa. Now, Jay and I have gotten a chance to play it on the Global Labs. I think that Tiltus, I don't believe that you have, but have you seen the gameplay of Awakening Woosa on the Global Labs?
No, I haven't watched any gameplay streams or gameplay videos of it.
Okay.
I've just seen the trailers that they've released and stuff like that. So
okay, Jay, what are your first thoughts on this? Just as a whole, Awakening Woosa as a whole.
I think they definitely nailed the aesthetics and the movement. Succession had a lot of issues with her movement having collision, and they basically made all her movement in Awakening have no collision, so she feels so much smoother and fluid when grinding. As for her abilities, they do feel much slower than Succession. I'm sure you've also already heard that her damage is poo-poo on Global Labs, but I think it's too early to have a final judgment on the class, just based on something that's been released for like 1 or 2 days on a test server. So new classes tend to have a lot of adjustments and changes made throughout the first month or two. I remember when I played with Succession Woosa on Global Labs, her damage was also kind of doo-doo. And when they released her in live, they pretty much gave her a 30% damage across the board, more damage across the board. So I'm kind of thinking the same thing will happen to her Awakening.
God.
Yeah, I
Not
agree.
again.
Jay, I'm curious, where do you feel like she fits in large-scale PvP?
Well, they did emphasize the mechanic of her landmines, and just landmines in history generally have been used to deter people out of certain areas. So I imagine the same thing maybe would be utilized in PvP, where they would be placed in, I don't know, like chokes and definitely not an assassin class. I think most people can agree that she's definitely not an assassin class, but more maybe a disruptor. Because if you do plant your landmines, they are a CC if somebody runs over them. I did notice they only do last like 10-15 seconds. I can't remember, but maybe they'll increase it to maybe 30 seconds to improve the function of being a landmine better. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think that
easy there, Tiger.
I think that anyone that complains about damage on the Global Labs has not done Global Labs enough to understand that damage on Global Labs is always messed up. Whether it's way too high or it's way too low, the damage on the Global Labs does not in any way reflect what the damage is going to look like on the main server. So what I want to focus on is, since we can't look at the damage number too much, we can speculate wildly. But I like, when I look at a new class, I always look at its class buff first, because usually the class buff is an indicator for what the developers feel like she should be played in. Right. So for Succession, Woosa, you saw that the class buff actually gave her plus 20 DP. It also gave her a bunch of HP, gave her like 1,000 HP, right? It's just a giant influx of HP. And then it gives you critical hit rate and some damage. And so what that tells me is that Succession Woosa is meant to be played as like this, I'm going to dive in and I'm going to have to take some damage, but I'm going to unload a fair amount of damage. Right, but she has to be close to do her damage, or at least relatively close. Now, if you contrast this with the Awakening class buff, the Awakening class buff still maintains the 20 DP buff, but you no longer get the HP anymore, which tells me that, okay, so this class is not meant to be as hands-on, right up in your face melee as Succession Woosa is. This is meant to be not necessarily full range, but definitely a mid-ranged style caster, which I'll admit. It's the first time we've ever seen a mid-range caster in the game. Usually when we see mid-range classes, there are always assassins, whether it be Dark Knight, Awakening Ranger, or even Awakening Zerker would count. I believe it's more of a mid-range assassin as well. Technically, you can play it as other things, but like this is our first time ever seeing anything like this, as like a caster standing from the midfield, not as far back as maybe an archer or like a Succession caster, but like somewhere in the middle. Right, so like you could definitely still get hit by some skills, and you have to put yourself in threat distance. But you definitely, and all of her accuracy modifiers are really high, and I don't feel like she really has any need to actually go in and get stuff done. Really be up front like a battle mage, like an Awakening Witch. Right, there's really no reason to get anywhere near your opponent. This is a ranged or a mid-range class, and you're supposed to sit there at the mid-range and really kind of float your skills out there. Now, I think go ahead.
I wanted to add something. I noticed some really interesting interaction with one of her skills specifically. It was her SE skill, back E skill, where even if the opponent is facing you, you just have full back attack at them. And I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it's this long range line CC.
Oh,
and
the
then
downy.
the flowers spawn in a line, and then they suck back into the book, and it's full back attack, and it's also a float, and you can put a core skill on it to give it forward guard as well. So I think that would be I don't know if any other skill has something like that where you just have a back attack from the front side,
Right.
But I feel like having that back attack from the front and also being a CC float in PvP would be kind of dangerous.
Incredibly good. Yeah, incredibly good skill where like if someone's standing in a frontal guard, you can CC them even from in front of them, and that makes her a very powerful mid-range caster. The only skill that I can think of that does that elsewhere in the game is Succession Nova, that dumb gargoyle skill where if you're standing at range, the gargoyle can come from like one of three directions, and and by one of three directions I mean of course it's going to spawn behind you. It's going to spawn behind you, and then it's going to float you from behind you, and the Suck Nova just stands there and starts snickering at you. So like but again, that makes a very powerful mid-range caster when you can follow up on that with like really, really big damage. Jay's right. That makes her really powerful. Now, she has gaps all over the place in her protections, but I think that the biggest thing that people are concerned about is her cast speed. Jay, are you concerned with her attack speed or like attack cast speed?
It is definitely a lot slower. But I personally don't mind that. I mean, I as I keep mentioning before, I played an Awakening Witch for 5 years, so I'm used to that APM, to be honest. And it was a very comfortable grind. I did post a video showcasing her grind on Gyphins, and you don't really have to cast too many abilities to for her gameplay flow. And so I kind of like that it's slow. I understand like nowadays players just want everything to be fast. And, fair enough so, because being fast allows you to react faster, allows you to do everything faster, right, for PvP purposes. But maybe because they are emphasizing her as a mid-range caster, it's important that she is a slower class for that reason. So
I think absolutely. I think that she's going to be really slow, and I think everyone's like, oh my gosh, her damage numbers are so low. I actually think that I've looked at the accuracy modifiers, and I think that she's designed. I think that she's going to hit like a Mack truck. Maybe not as hard as Succession Sage, but somewhere between Suck Sage and DK and Awakening Dark Knight. Somewhere in that range, because I think with the slow cast times but really high accuracy modifiers in large scale PvP, in 1v1s and small scales, this makes her terrible. She's not going to be able to do it. She's right just above Awakening Witch. Like, she's really slow cast times. She needs to set up her skills, right? She's trying to play from the mid-range, but she can get jumped on, and she's relatively unprotected. She's probably going to get demolished in 1v1s and small scales. But as you add more and more players to the equation in large-scale PvP and then in Siege, I think you end up in this situation where you've got this Woosa who's just throwing out all of her traps. She's throwing out her big damage, and no one's really focusing or looking at her. And she can just, because she's got the support from the warriors, from the Valkyries, from the Zerkers who are standing there and can support her. And so other classes won't jump on her anymore. And now she's just outputting tremendous amounts of damage. I think that's where we're going to see it. And what makes me think this even more are the support skills. What do you feel about the support skills, Jay? Do you like them? Is it not enough?
I think 1 second here. I had some notes about it.
Well, here, you pull up those notes and I'll explain real quick.
Go for it, because I'm out of the loop.
Yeah, the particular awakening skill that I'm referring to, we're not sure what the name is yet because we just don't have the money to translate it. They added this skill. It's a huge AoE. Think of like a PA range, a caster PA range AoE, and it gives all of your allies 300 HP regen every 3 seconds, I think it is. For the next 30 seconds, and you can cast it once every minute. So basically every single push this is going to be up. It also gives them MP regen, but we don't really care about that. I guess we do care about that a little bit because there's classes in the game like Succession Draconia that can drain your MP, but like really we don't care as much about the MP regen. But I think that HP regen is actually pretty huge. And that coupled with Chrysanth, which is the pre-awakening skill, because Awakening Woosa still has access to her pre-awakening kit. Sagunja Chrysanth is a skill that gives all allies that it hits 30% move speed for the next like 7 or 8 seconds, which is huge, by the way. It's one of the biggest move speed, or 10 seconds. It's one of the biggest move speed buffs in the game, if not the biggest allied move speed buff in the game, aside from Shy.
Shy's only 20%.
So Shy's only 20.
But it does stack. It does stack with the Christ.
So exactly. And so like if you have enough, so if you have enough Shies and Woosas, you're like, all right guys, put your weapons away, and the Shies buff up and the Cruciate comes out, and you're like running in the 90s, and your offense ball is actually hauling ass over the hill. It's actually super sick because it really increases the tempo at which you want to approach the enemy offense ball. Because as a shot caller, you're like, okay, we're waiting, and then you see them come onto your mini map in your peripheral vision, unless you're Richter, in which case you shot call without a mini map. And then you see them come off onto your mini map in your peripheral vision, and you have time to like react. But if you've got 50% move speed buff and the offense ball comes over the hill so fast and engages you, man, that's really powerful. And I think that Woosa adds this aspect of like this long engaged skirmish type thing with the HP regen and then the move speed. I think that's really powerful, and I love that she's a ball class. She's not a freaking flank class, right?
Yep.
I love that she's a ball class. All right, so Jay, share with us your notes.
Yeah, I mean, I am really happy that Woosa Awakening got some sort of party utility, but I do have to be honest, I am kind of disappointed at what it was. It's like, it's okay, like I don't mind what it is, but I think it's kind of boring personally. I like HP regen. It's, a lot of support classes have some sort of HP regen to give their other allies, and
it's not a shot caller
to them. But I would have loved for it to be a little bit more interesting. Like if we take a look at the lore of Woosa, like they mentioned that Woosa was involved in this sort of this Korean myth, right, of this sort of purgatory called the Sochon Flower Garden. So I was thinking maybe it would be more in line with that. Maybe like an AOE res mechanic would have been kind of cool to match up with the lore of this sort of purgatory. I don't know.
You can't do that. You're spoiling. Yeah, you can't do that.
We talked about that last week. You're gonna give the man a stroke.
Put the gun down, Jake. Step away from the firearm.
Awakening Woosa continuous care as a buff, for people who don't have continuous care.
So I will piggyback off what Blue said. 300 HP regen every 3 seconds over 30 seconds is pretty huge for ball fights and PvP. I mean,
massive.
that is a large buff.
Yeah, I never said it was bad. I said it was like boring.
Yeah. So that one, unless the bosses come out and there's just this massive need for HP regen, that is a large scale skill, which I am fine with having 1 or 2 of in everybody's kit, because PvP still is one of the biggest things BDO has going for it. So yeah, I like it. I mean, Blue and I are both shot callers, so we're thinking of it already like, oh man,
how can I apply this?
Yeah, how can I use this? So for large scale, it's going to be really nice. For PvE, yeah, it's probably a very lackluster skill. And lore wise too, I can see it being a little, it doesn't really play into the lore of the Watcher of the Garden or whatever it is that she is specifically.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for more support style stuff. If I'm being honest, I liked it, but like I was kind of hoping for a little bit more support aspects of her kit overall. I think that it has very strong implications in large scale PvP. But I also, and the 100% is basically useless. We have another class that's basically following BSR. But let me wrap something around. Let me wrap something around your guys' heads real quick. So I know the HP regen doesn't seem super crazy substantial, but stack that with the unicorn buff, Woosa buff. So unicorn buff, Woosa buff, shy regen, and your normal health potion. And you have this situation where like you lose a bunch of HP and someone's like, okay, baby, I'm going to combo this. What the fuck? He just got all of his HP back.
Yep.
Like
add the gill skill into that too.
All right. Every 3 seconds, they're getting back like 2,000 HP. Just adding and effectively your HP pool for the fight is dramatically higher. Like, oh, I just caught a heal. No, you didn't.
Yep.
Your HP regen is just that good, right? Who needs casters when you can just regen your HP?
Self-sustain is what we call that.
Exactly.
I don't need a caster.
So, Jay, do you think it's going to be good? Do you think Awakening Woosa, are you going to play it over Succession?
Yeah. 100%. I memean, I was looking for a more comfortable grind anyways, and so Awakening Woosa definitely feels very, very comfy, even if it's not going to be as good as Succession Woosa, right? I'm sure most people know that Succession Woosa is absolutely so strong in PvE right now. but it does hurt my fingers. A lot of people
This man never played DK.
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, I keep emphasizing I played an Awakening Witch for 5 years, and so going from Awakening Witch to Succession Woosa was a big APM increase. Maybe if you came from playing an Awakening Nova, it might not feel like a big APM increase.
The joke with DK was that all of DK's abilities that hit good for PvE are all shift buttons. So you would have a super sore pinky after an hour of grinding on DK. So that's why I said you've never played a DK and it shows, because every skill for DK is a shift button.
Yep.
See.
Yep. I think that it's actually going to be pretty good in PvE.
Yeah,
but we will.
If it's a mid-range caster, I'll probably give it a try. I like mid-range casters, so.
Because you're nuking the mobs with like 3 skills, right? So it's just low APM. Doesn't mean it's going to be bad. I mean, we'll see. It could be lackluster, but I actually think it's got the AoE. It's got the damage, I feel like. I think it'll be great in PvE, and I think it'll be great in large scale. I think in 1v1s and small scale, you're swapping servers. But aside from that, I think it's going to look really good there. All right, final thoughts on Woosa? Anything you guys want to get in real quick?
No, I like the idea of a mid-range caster.
I actually think it might be really good in 1v1s, like surprisingly, not because of the Awakening kit, but because of how she still has access to her pre-awakening, because her pre-awakening is like, I was watching somebody play Awakening Woosa for PvP, and they still you still have access to all your catches in pre-awakening, and the catches in pre-awakening are really strong.
I'm getting the vibes.
If you can set up your landmines properly and then position around them, maybe, and you can catch them with your pre-awakening, and you set up all those explosions, maybe it might be actually a really good melee class. I don't know.
So, fun fact, DK also used to have a trap that was a landmine trap.
Yeah.
Awakening DK had trap of Vadir.
Yep, I used to use that all the time.
Fantastic for catches, because when they changed CCs in the game to where every ability basically only first hit CC, how it was for a long time, Trap of Vadir was one of the only skills in the game that had multi-proc CC. So what would happen is people would jump into it with protection, block the first hit, and then the second hit would always get them, and they would get stunned. So you're speaking my language. The swapping between specs for PvP is like, now you're getting back to what I loved about DK and why I played DK for so long, because Awakening DK is very much, you got your nukes in Awaken, but a lot of your catches were always in pre-awakened. So
you're weaving in and out. It's actually so seamless. I don't know if you've been trying Blue, but if you lock fan kick in pre-awakening, then you instead use your Awakening kick, which seamlessly puts you back into Awakening. And then if you want to get back into pre-awakening, you can either use your bombs or Shift Q, which is Stormfall, and all of your skills in Awakening chain into Stormfall like so seamlessly. So I think that might be the idea they had with Awakening Woosa, is that you still utilize a lot of your pre-awakening. So.
That's in my opinion, that's how every Awakening should play, in my honest opinion.
I think the Absolute Skills, it's an extension of your Awakening kit, really.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm getting kind of hype about it now. I'm going to try it out tomorrow. I haven't made my seasonal character yet because I've been kind of waiting. So
looks like I'm going to
get tomorrow. So
I still think it's not going to be super great in 1v1s. I think it'll be like middle of the road to not so great in 1v1s for sure.
That's how Awakened DK is too, though.
Yeah, maybe not unplayable, but Awakening DK is pretty good in 1v1s. Not bad at all. It's the only thing. Now, but I'm talking about now.
I know. When I bring up Awakening DK, I'm always thinking of like 2020 Awakening DK, where it's like,
my thoughts on Awakening Woosa are, I don't know. I feel like, yes, you can switch between pre-awakening and awakening, but the problem is you've taken a lot of like you've taken a lot of like the damage out of the pre-awakening kit that you normally just follow up with on those catches, and you've put it so you can catch them with the pre-awakening kit, but then you got to get back into awakening, which admittedly is seamless, but then you got to cast like what you get like one skill. You're gonna get one skill off. And that's so like I do think it's gonna suffer. It'll be like Suck Sage in 1v1. You know what I mean? Playable if have enough gear. Jay's probably just gonna be like, I don't know what the problem is.
Press button and get killed.
I just death is the best CC. You know what I mean?
True. Yeah.
All right, so the final thing I want to touch on is our last forum post, which should be pretty quick. TheSeaman definitely, and this was brought up at the Caltheon Ball, moving the servers from California to more of a middle of the road. Might I suggest? I mean, they said something like Texas. I would suggest. I'm just gonna throw this out there as a ballpark, totally random thought. Missouri. I'll supervise the servers myself.
Look,
No
I've
big
been
deal.
preaching this for months now. Just put them in Chicago where the league servers are at. Please, for the love of God.
That's what I was hoping. But honestly, Texas is fine too. Do
Yeah.
either of you not want the servers to move? Can we like?
My only concern with Texas is all the Canadians that also play on NA because they are technically NA. So I know Texas is a little far for them. So, but Chicago's like that perfect spot in my opinion. You get Canadians are all right. East Coast is all right. West Coast is all right. If you're in Chicago or, Wisconsin or any of those border states right there, you get like 6 ping and you're just ping carried. But like everybody else is playing at like 32. So
Yeah. Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's too much to disagree on this post. BDO is a very ping reliant game in PvP and even a little in PvE. Like if you're trying to avoid getting bonked by mobs and losing your rebellious crystals and soon the new legendary crystals. So yeah, I mean, centralized servers, no brainer. So
Yeah, I mean, and plus I think it yes, is it more money up front? Yeah, but it saves them stupid amounts of money, I think, overall. I mean, bro, their servers are in California. The amount of money that it probably takes to upkeep those servers in Los Angeles has got to be more money than doing it somewhere like Texas or Chicago.
mm-hmm.
Right? Like it's just baffling to me that it hasn't come yet. They did say that they were working on it, but we haven't heard heads or tails of it since the announcement at the Caltheon Ball. And one of the most disturbing things is we haven't actually heard anything about a Heidel Ball. Like if you guys haven't heard anything about a Heidel Ball, right?
Yeah, I got a feeling it's probably coming up. They're probably waiting for the hype of Morning Light, and they'll probably announce it kind of around the same time, would be my guess.
The real question that all the creators are wondering, are they going to invite us to the Heidel Ball too? Come on, baby. Here we go. But yeah, no. I think overall, we all want that server. We all want the servers to be centrally located. Closing thoughts on the patch that we're gonna get tonight. We're gonna get Awakening Woosa, and then we're gonna get some worker changes too.
Yeah.
Tiltus,
Fingers crossed.
Tiltus, you want to go through the worker changes real quick? Well, I know we're running
are they
out of time
out?
here.
Are they live somewhere?
Yeah, I think we're getting them. I mean, I can go through them real quick. We're gonna.
Yeah, I think the C patch notes might be up.
All right. Yeah. If you already got them up, go for it, Blue.
Yeah. So the workers are going to be able to level up to level 40 now. And then we're going to be able to do
that worker change.
Yes,
okay.
We're going to get level 40 workers.
I thought we had already gotten that. Actually, I haven't been paying attention to the recent patch notes. I've been AFK for like a week.
This guy. Yeah, no, we're getting the level 40 change. I'm not sure. We're not getting. Are we getting the we can tell the workers to deliver the?
We're getting the
goods
shy
in any
dances. We're getting the shy dances. Did you see?
All right, it's been a good podcast, everybody. I'm out for the evening.
Of course, bro. Of course. Bro, honestly, can we get the dances on all the characters? Do you have any idea the amount of BM that we could lay on people if we could dance over their corpse?
Dance with the emotes from last week.
That's what I mean.
It's like flashing your mastery.
But yeah, I think that so in the patch tonight we're getting Awakening Woosa, we're getting the level 40 worker changes, and I think you can actually deliver the goods to any city that you want as long as your worker is level 40.
Yep.
Right, and that's a massive quality of life change, so that you can put everything that you want in one fucking city, or tell them to go to whatever city you want without actually affecting the work time. That's huge, I think. And then we're getting shy dancing. The shy dancing is cool, but I will say that they should add that for every class. I don't know why every class in the game can't dance. Because
if they can't dance, they're no friends of mine.
And if they can dance, I respect it. I respect it. All right, let's go into outro and closing thoughts. Tiltus, why don't you go first?
Hey, I am Tiltus TV, part-time streamer, full-time shot caller. I shot call for the Alliance Solace. Our main days are Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So if you would like to see me yell at all my friends, you can pop into my streams on those days. Friday is PvP day. Saturday is MSQ day, and then Sunday is Dark Souls. It's Soul Sunday, so we're hopping back on that stream schedule now that I've through my Omega Strikers hard binge. Hit top 3,000 players in NA, by the way. I'm just you gonna be streaming today after the podcast, or are you wrapping up? No, negative. No, okay. Tuesday is a work. Wednesday's a work day, so can't be staying up too late.
I feel you. I'm sorry, can't relate. Teacher, summer.
Yeah, weirdo.
Jay.
I should really start writing out like outro scripts. But hi, my name is Jay Kuhn. I do a lot of PvE content. I'm 750 gear score. I'm always happy to answer questions about the game. I will be streaming a lot of Awakening Woosa tomorrow, so you can find me over at twitch.tv/JayKuhnVT. V before the T.
Right.
Sorry, make sure you get the V before the T on that one.
That's right. And I am Blue Squadron, of course. We guys, remember the podcast is always posted to YouTube. You can leave your comments down in the description. You might just see your comment discussed the following week. We are on Spotify and Apple Podcast as well, so you can always listen to the podcast in the car on the way to work. The whole idea here for this content is to let you listen to meaningful video content outside of being at your computer. So make sure that you guys follow up on that. Also, if you guys like the forum post that we discussed today, or you enjoyed any of those discussions, I always post the link to the forum post in the description to the video on YouTube. So make sure you go upvote that, as it is the best way to get things across to the developers. That being said, that is going to be a wrap for the Old Moon Podcast, episode 11. Make sure you tune in to my channel, Tiltus's channel, Jay Kuhn's channel for all of your content needs. Thank you so much, guys, and have a great rest of your night.